Curiosity is one of the most important character traits for a photojournalist. This is the fuel that feeds our fires. If you don't like surprises, asking questions, blazing trails, or feeling out of place, photojournalism might not be right for you. My name is Sean. I've been a photojournalist for 25 years, working with Getty Images, the New York Times, the Associated Press, and others for the last 10. In this video, I'll share what I've learned about photojournalism over a span of 4 decades. If your pictures aren't good enough, you're not close enough. And while this isn't the case all the time, it's a pretty good rule of thumb. When we get close, intimacy follows. That said, Robert Capa was killed when he got too close to a landmine. Explore angles, identify the best results, and double down on those. Once I start making photos, and sometimes before, I'll walk around the subject to see which backgrounds and lighting scenarios work best together. You can also do this if you arrive early. When I was younger, I was frequently cutting it close to getting places on time. And I was on time when it mattered, but being on time isn't good enough for photojournalists. Arriving early gives the photojournalist an opportunity to get familiar with the scene, but more importantly, it gives the people on the scene an opportunity to get familiar with us. There's a psychological power when it comes to occupying a space before others. This applies to large areas over periods of time, and specific location and exact moments. As a photographer, you're much less intrusive when people come into the space that you already occupy. Getting somewhere early also helps you get into your zone. Photojournalism is a performance-based activity where state of mind and routine play an important role. Caption writing is one of the bigger distinguishers between photojournalists and everybody else with a camera. Having the who, what, where, and when is invaluable in this modern age dominated by misinformation. If you're curious about how photojournalists write captions, I have a video for that here. There are many things that photojournalists can do to help them meet their deadlines, but none of them rival preparing captions before each assignment. Typically, we have enough information to write significant portions of our captions ahead of time. For example, before each assignment, we typically know the where and when for the first sentence of our caption and should have enough information for the second sentence. With breaking news, it's a little bit different. We have to think on our feet, but the process is still the same. One of the most important things a photojournalist can do is get the name of the dog. Also, get the names of the people too. Begin your assignment by knocking out the basic requirements. Then circle back and swing for the fences. Take risks and get creative. If you fail and fail and fail again, you learn what doesn't work. This is where we get to make our best photos and where we get to learn the most. This also provides a system for both excellence and reliability. My photos typically have at least 2 layers, a subject and a background. Sometimes I'm working with a foreground subject and background, and occasionally I'm making use of more than just 3 layers. One of the most powerful storytelling techniques in photography uses layers to signal context. These messages can be subtle or obvious. Political campaigns orchestrate this all the time. Sometimes we even get language to harness. These contextual layers of the photograph don't have to be in focus as long as they're still identifiable. When working on a photo story that will involve multiple photos, vary your detail, close, wide, medium, and tight shots like a filmmaker would. Study filmmaking. In the age of the photo dump, learn to edit tightly and what makes a great photograph. Apply this to your own work. The power of still photography rests in its ability to tell a story in a single frame. Use photography with intention. Some editors and reporters might want to see a lot of photos published on their websites so that they can attract an audience that might want to see themselves there. I don't think this is photojournalism. Consume great photojournalism. Go to GettyImages.com and type in Bestpix and Toppix in the search query of the editorial tab. Go to APImages.com and use AP Toppix. Here, you'll find a running feed of the best photography selected by editors at the corresponding wire services. Look for weekly, monthly, and yearly best of photojournalism collections. The Atlantic and Time do a good job publishing great photography. Make a social media account where the goal was to follow the best photojournalists. No friends, no relatives. Only people making photos that you aspire to make. curate this. If you want a head start here, I've got Instagram and BlueSky photojournalism lists linked in the video description. Invest in your physical and mental health. And I'm not necessarily talking about money, I'm talking about time and effort. Being a photojournalist comes with physical and mental challenges. Doing it well at times of great importance often involves a lot of problem solving. Assignments can be missions, and luck lives at the intersection of preparation and opportunity. Are all your batteries fully charged each morning when you wake? What if it rains for 3 days straight? What if we lose power for a week? The future looks crazy. Are you ready? Don't be afraid to work other jobs or learn new skills. Nurture hobbies and your friendships. Ask the assigning editor questions. In this day and age, newspapers often cut corners by eliminating the photo editor position and giving those responsibility to other folks who may not know what you need. As a result, communication here often suffers. You'll be working from a disadvantage if you don't know the basic and important information about the assignment. You're going to have trouble telling the story, and you'll have trouble getting access because the subjects aren't going to respect you. If you're an assigning editor, for heaven's sake, give your photojournalist the basic information so that they can do their job. That said, when you ask questions of editors who are overworked and their main concern isn't photojournalism, you no longer make their job easy. And in this day and age of newspapers, a lot of editors are overworked to the point where the main concern is just getting things done. This means you'll be risking opportunities for future work by doing your job well. Ask your questions and time them carefully. Take that information and research the topic and the people that you'll encounter while on assignment. Your storytelling will be exponentially better, and you'll gain the respect out of the people that you photograph. One of the most important things in photojournalism and documentary photography is the ability to get access. If you can get the respect out of the people that you photograph, they'll give you the access that you want. You need people around you that have been there before. A lot of this profession is about learned experiences and institutional knowledge, and you can't learn it in a textbook or on YouTube. Mentors will also help keep you grounded and provide direction. Don't put all your eggs into one basket, especially when it comes to social media. Be ready for a long game, establishing a relationship with an audience that doesn't exist on any single platform. You may need to be your own one-person crew. This is why I highly recommend having your own website in addition to any profiles on social media. It's the one place on the internet where we probably have the most control. As a photojournalist, there's always more context to explore. I grew up in Maryland, but for the last 25 plus years I've lived in South Carolina, a state that started a civil war to preserve an institution of slavery. As you can imagine, understanding these dynamics is pretty important covering the communities here in this state. And, quite frankly, the rest of the country. A major role for photojournalists and all journalists in general is contributing to a first draft of history. Learn about licensing and copyright. For photographers, this subject is probably going to be boring and tough at times, but it's going to be really important for your long-term survival. There are two main types of working photojournalists: staffers and freelancers. Staffers work for a specific media outlet, have consistent work, regular paycheck, benefits, access to a newsroom, and they probably also have a budget for camera repair and equipment. Freelancers also work on assignment and occasionally on spec, but all that other stuff that the staffers have, freelancer is without. No budget for camera repairs, no access to a newsroom, no consistent work or a regular paycheck. Also, freelancers don't get pink slips, you just get ghosted. Selling news photography in real time is a rarity, although it does happen occasionally. Once again, this is why learning about licensing and copyright is so important. Proactivity is key. The photojournalism market is poor and it's shrinking. Competition has always been high, and with each passing day, there's less work. For freelance photojournalists, this means we'll probably have to take on lots of personal projects. How else do we expect to keep our skills sharp, like say maybe a staffer who's getting consistent assignments on a daily basis? The question is, can we monetize our personal projects or something around them? I'm definitely not where I'm at as a freelance photojournalist without the hundreds of personal projects that I've taken on over the years. Many small, but some big. I'm still even trying to figure it out. Learn to live with no money and be prepared to be an entrepreneur. Newspapers are tanking and resourcefulness has never been so important. Consider sustainability. Also, be prepared to be labeled as enemies of the people by politicians. Photojournalism does not pay well and the job prospects are slim and getting smaller. I'd wager to say that most photojournalists in the last 15 years have been forced to leave the industry. Competition in photojournalism has never been tougher, and with the ever-changing media landscape, it's getting even more difficult to navigate. If you're not up for a Goliath-type challenge, you're looking in the wrong place. If you're big and tall, use your height advantage to photograph over crowds. If you're short and small, use this advantage to navigate through them and get up close to people. If you're 5'6", you're going to be less intimidating than if you're 6'3". Remember, if your pictures aren't good enough, you're not close enough. We each bring different personal attributes to our roles as photojournalists, and the challenge is to figure out how to harness them. This is how we develop personal style. Keep extra memory cards and a stepladder in your vehicle. For extra protection, keep an extra memory card in your wallet. One day, this will be a superpower. Most photojournalism assignments aren't crazy news events. Most of the time, we're just documenting normal everyday life, and there's value in that. I highly recommend joining the National Press Photographers Association if you live or work in the United States. This is probably more important than your local or state press association because, well, quite frankly, nobody really talks about photojournalism outside of photojournalists. Heading into 2025, I recommend a mirrorless camera body with a wide prime or a wide zoom and a 70-200. Go with the f4 or the f2.8 depending upon your budget. If you can afford two camera bodies, I highly recommend using the same exact models for button, menu, and operation consistency. My typical news kit these days is two Sony A9 II bodies, a 20mm, a 50mm, and a 70-200. I've got bigger lenses for sports and politics, but you don't need all this stuff. And I haven't always had it. We'll never have all the gear we want, so avoid this never-ending chase. Everyone harbors some degree of bias. The key is understanding that the guardrails in journalism, like the guidelines around caption writing, are what keep us in line when doing our jobs. Studying media literacy and history while also listening to people who don't look like we do will also help counter bias. This is also where formal education on process on journalism is very helpful. Photojournalists work within ethical guardrails. For example, we can't ask anyone to move or perform for the cameras. That is, unless we're making portraits and we identify this activity in the caption. For example, Robbie Robertson poses for a photo at City Limits Barbecue in West Columbia, South Carolina on Saturday, January 11th, 2025. Robertson was a 2024 James Beard finalist. There are also strict limitations around post-processing with photojournalism. I cover this in greater detail with the help of the National Press Photographers Association in the video linked here. Organizations like the NPPA regularly address the topic of ethics, and this is an ongoing conversation. Like I mentioned before, there's not many photojournalists covering news on their own and then licensing or selling images to media outlets on an individual basis. Because of the speed of the news cycle and the high frequency in which news media relies on citizen-contributed photos, often coming at no cost, most paid work in photojournalism involves communication and signed agreements before coverage of any newsworthy event. To get assignments, you need to get your portfolio and contact information in front of the people who hire photojournalists. This is typically an assigning photo editor. As a photojournalist, you'll need to be able to shoot sports, features, portraiture, breaking news, and more. At local daily newspapers, sports photographers seem to be in the most demand. At the national dailies, portraiture is highly valued. As a freelance photojournalist, you'll need to be able to take on other types of work. For some, this is a mixture between commercial, wedding, event, and video work. Some freelance photojournalists drive Ubers and wait tables. I bartended for over a decade. Both the photography and journalism job markets face extreme challenges in the near future. I'm not sure what lies in store next, but I know it's not going to be easy. If you have any questions about photojournalism or working as a photojournalist, feel free to ask those in the comments. If you want to add anything from your own personal experiences, do that here too.